How you guys doing? All right, good. I haven't held a microphone in quite a long time, so just bear with me if I drop it or anything else. Um, this is a really fun conversation for me to have with you all because this is the kind of stuff that as a professional in this field, we use this constantly. We're in this day in and day out. We even do it for our own website, our own web properties, and all this kind of thing. So. This is really, really fun for us to talk about, okay? And so I just want to thank everybody for coming out. I know you got other things that you can be doing on an evening, night, and thank the other sponsors as well for participating in this group. This is a great organization that we're proud to be part of, and we're looking forward to providing more information as we move forward into the future. So if you like what we have to say tonight, chime in, say, give us some feedback, and and we'll look forward to any thoughts, any conversation, any questions at the end are all welcome. All right. So, all right. So, Frank introduced me. I'm the CEO of a local agency here, Leeds Nearby. My business partner is here in the audience as well. And combined, I would say we probably have about 35 years of SEO or internet marketing experience. We've been doing this for quite a long time, even before e-com came out, really, and all the kinds of things that we work on now are really local SEO. But this material has really not changed a huge amount in I don't know, 15 years, give or take. There's a little bit of nuance, and we'll get into some of that, but really, it's pretty fundamental, like we said. All right, so most of you probably are small business owners, or you have a website, or you have some e-commerce. You're trying to do something. You're trying to build a group. You're trying to build a community. Whatever it is that you're trying to do online. In most cases, people do this stuff because their goal is to generate some profit. Okay. Now you could be doing it as a hobby or something like that also, but you're going to get some benefit out of it as well in terms of pleasure. So it's kind of the same thing. So what you want to do is you want to generate that brand. You want to build traffic in the form of SEO, which we're here all for, and then you want to turn that into paying customers or something along those same lines, right? All right. Like Frank said, if you don't, you got to build the foundation correctly. I'll use the analogy. The right foundation is the one that gets you essentially in the water, right? Here, you can have the greatest ship. You can build this great arc of a ship, and if you put it on the desert, it's not going anywhere, right? So make sure that you get this stuff right. There are a lot of resources that we're going to reference here, and again, this slide deck will be available afterwards, and it'll be available in the video and everything like that. So don't feel like you got to write down the URLs that are showing up here because they're way too long. I didn't make them up, so don't blame me, but all right. So we're going to talk primarily about Google because, show of hands, who's interested in Google versus Yahoo and Bing? I mean, in all reality, if you optimize for Google, you're optimizing for the more extensive search engine, right? They've got a much more extensive algorithmic sense. You're going to do well on Yahoo and Bing anyway. In all reality, that's the case. So you're not focusing on the wrong thing to be focused on Google at this point. All right, Google is a profit-driven company. We all know this. They like to portray that they're in this business to do good, benefit humanity, and everything like that. But at the end of the day, they have quarterly shareholders meetings that they have to show a profit. The way they show a profit is to keep searchers coming back to their web properties, and the way that happens is if the material that's shown in search results is the best possible material, the thing that answers people's questions. Okay, so all right, this is coming straight out of Google's guidelines, right? There's a URL there at the bottom, and again, you don't have to copy this. You can go to Google and type in search engine optimization guidelines, and you will get that link to that PDF. Okay. I excerpted from it because it's far too long to put on a slide, but you should base your optimization decisions on putting your customers first. What is it that your customers are looking for? What are they going to be when they hit your page, what are they going to be excited to see? And the ancillary to this is if you're focusing too much on just trying to get rankings, you're probably not doing your customers the right service, okay? That's not my words, those are Google's words. All right, so this is, I didn't come up with this picture, but this is, Google's got I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but in addition to the material that they've formally published, right, Google has another set of guidelines that they've actually issued to their own internal manual reviewers. So there are employees of Google that go into the search engine results and they actually double check on the algorithmic results once in a while, especially when there are questions about that, and they can assess penalties and other things like that. But the guidelines that they follow fall into 3 areas: expertise, authority, and trust. And you see that, you know, below expertise is the word content, because content is how you demonstrate expertise. Authority is demonstrated by links, and trust is demonstrated typically by reviews. Okay, and we're going to talk about each one of those areas. The 3 essential steps to an SEO program of any kind, okay, fall into on-site, right? The on-site foundation, this is how everything is put together. Off-site foundation, and then finally everything else. And I'm calling that beyond the essentials. And we're just going to get into, we're just going to touch on some of those topics. They're kind of to wet your whistle a little bit. I'm going to make reference to an example here throughout. We just put this up here for today. Bob's Blue Widgets. Nobody knows what a widget is, but for the sake of argument, let's just say it's whatever it is that you represent as a product or a service or something like that. It's what you want to try and, you want people to come and take a look at, okay? So first step, build that on-site foundation, your website. All right, we could spend hours talking just about website stuff. But your website is the face of your brand. It is the thing that you control. It is your opportunity to tell the world what it is, how well you do it, all of those type of things. This is what you represent. All right? You want to make sure that your website is covering a couple of key ideas, right? Again, to Google's point, you want to make sure it's satisfying your customers, so is it user-friendly? First thing. Nowadays, you have to make sure it's all mobile compliant or device independent and so forth. Everybody refers to that as mobile friendly. You want to make sure it's mobile friendly. Now, if you're not sure if your site is after everything is done, it's up and you're happy with it. If you're not sure it's mobile friendly, you can go to Google and do a search for your website, and if it's mobile on a mobile device, and if it comes back with the little word mobile friendly, guess what? It's mobile friendly as far as Google's concerned. So that's a double check step. A lot of times people will use things like responsive design and they don't do it exactly right, and it ends up not being mobile friendly, but they thought it might be. So that's a way to double check that. All right, obviously your website needs to include SEO. That's why everybody's here. I would recommend highly using a content management system. A lot of people refer to it as a CMS. I don't want to use acronyms, but a CMS, like WordPress, is the most popular content management system on the planet. It is a very good system. It gives you a tremendous amount of additional features that you can use free, essentially. It's all, open source and things like that, so you can use plugins and themes and things like that. They're all free. I do caution you, though, if you use WordPress in particular, make sure that you employ some security. It's beyond the scope of this, but WordPress is also the most heavily hacked platform on the planet. Goes without saying that the most popular would also be the most targeted. So you can find information there. There are additional plugins that you can use for that as well. But WordPress is a great tool for you to use, and we're going to get into a little bit later about user-generated content And that's the kind of thing that you can really leverage in a dynamic platform, a content management system like WordPress. All right? All right, so you're building this website. First step, right? You create the first page. What do you name it, right? Make it simple. Plan it out in advance. We employ something we call a content and SEO strategy. We make up an actual documentation for each website. Some people might refer to it as an information architecture. Again, it goes by a lot of different types of terminology, but make sure you plan what you want this to become. And you're going to want to include a number of pages. We'll get to that in a minute, but what pages to include. But you want to make sure that you plan out what the pages are going to be, and you use a simple and consistent set of naming conventions to do that. One of the biggest things that I've seen as a problem here is if you use too many subdirectories or you have far too deep a site. It's called the depth of the crawl in Google's case. They're going to crawl the website, and if they hit too many pages before they get to the content, it decreases in importance. Okay? This actually used to be a blocking factor years ago because the crawlers weren't quite as sophisticated. They're going to find most of the content now, regardless of how deep you put it. But because of how you have to interlink pages, you're going to have a harder time demonstrating certain material is important if it's too far down in the directory tree. Okay, so keep everything one or two directories in. You don't generally need more than that. Even if you're getting into a several hundred-page site, you shouldn't need much more depth than that in terms of directory. All right, page titles. So you created the page, you named the page. What do you want it to say? What is the first thing that it should talk about? The page title, and this goes in your meta tag, right? The header, right? This is a meta title in the header. Your page title is probably the single most important thing to demonstrate what a page is. Okay, and that's Googlebot. That's the Googlebot, and he's actually saying from the guide that page titles are an important aspect of search engine optimization. So if the Googlebot himself says it, we have to believe that might be true. All right, so when Google crawls your page, what ends up showing up in the search results is the material that it finds on some of these different elements that we'll cover just as we go there. Page title is the most important because that is the thing that shows up typically right at the top of a search result. And you see an example there. We're using my blue widget example. That's about the right length for a title. Okay, you don't want to exceed maybe 60 characters, 70 characters at the absolute max, depending on whether they're narrow characters or wide characters. But that's about the right amount for a title to be. Description is the next thing in your header, okay? And that is also part of what a search engine is going to show, right? Combination of the title, the description, and the website address, sometimes referred to as the URL, the URI, that is what's going to show up in a SERP result, search engine results page. Now, Google may interpret the content of your page instead of the description of that page when it shows a page in the search result. And the reason it would make that change is based on the context of what was searched. So let's say you have a page and it covers a specific topic, but it also covers something else, and somebody searches for that, and that page is what's shown. They may not use the description. They may use part of the text of the topic, of the page itself. And again, on every single page, please make sure you make them unique. Title and description should be unique per page. All right. We're jumping ahead to before we get to content, but when you're ready to launch your site, you got to make sure that you don't have any errors on there, okay? One of the things that we come across in a tremendous number are websites that have references or links to broken pages. Otherwise referred to as 404 pages. We also find redirects of various types. Those are sometimes referred to as 301 and 302 errors. 503 would mean that you've got some kind of secure content that's inaccessible. Okay? And there's a whole slew of other ones that are possible, but you get the idea. You want to make sure that if you are presenting this material to the world, so your customers, your prospects, as well as the search engines, you want it to be consistent. You want to make sure that everything is reachable by customers and the search engines. And there are plenty of tools out there to do that. Google has its Search Console, right, which used to be referred to as Webmaster Tools. Now it's Search Console. Next year it's going to be something else. But use the Search Console. Use analytics of various types. Doesn't have to be Google Analytics, but you can use that. We use a tool called Screaming Frog. And if you were here last month, you had a whole different set of or additional tools in the tool belt that you can bring to the disposal for checking things like this. All right? And last but not least, on the fixing of problems before you think everything is up and done, robots.txt is a file in the root of your website, typically. So your root domain and then robots.txt, almost always the case. That file can exclude crawlers from crawling your website. Okay, if it's done incorrectly, you can basically make your entire website invisible. Don't do that. Okay, and in fact, Google has recently come out and gotten a little bit more vocal about telling people and giving people web feedback about excluding things that used to be okay to exclude. Used to be standard practice to exclude things like JavaScript and cascading style sheets. Again, if those are above your, don't worry about that. But now Google's actually saying to people, don't exclude that material. They want to see everything if they can. So only exclude things that are going to be in violation of some kind of privacy. Everything else, try and make available for the crawlers. All right, and then last but not least, before you launch the site, you got to tell somebody it's available, right? It'd be the same as putting up a flag and saying, hey, I'm here. So you can actually submit your website to the crawlers, right? Doesn't mean they're going to crawl everything immediately, but at least it means that you're a known quantity. If you just bought a domain and you put it on a hosting plan and everything like that, you're essentially invisible. You got to get into the search engines before you can start ranking for anything. All right. So one way you do that is, again, submit it through Search Console. You can do that every day of the week. Additionally, we recommend 2 different sitemaps. One is a user sitemap for people who are going to be navigating on the website. This is the primary one that your users are going to find, right? And then in the background, and you don't have to make this part of the navigation at all. You want to create a sitemap .xml or sitemap underscore index.html, whatever it happens to be. There are tools, again, that you can use to create these. In fact, Google has a sitemap creator, and WordPress has a multitude of different plugins that you can use to automate the creation of this sitemap. Okay, and then you submit the sitemap, and everything gets indexed. All right. Now, on to expertise. This is where you are, again, demonstrating what this site is about, what information is going in all the pages. All right, we just created pages, we just named the pages, we know we have the header information right, the title and the description, and we fixed all the problems. What's actually on the page? Because what's on the page is what you're going to rank for. Ultimately, right, everybody's heard content is king. This is where it comes down to. Content is where you want to focus your attention. It's what shows the value of your material versus hundreds of millions of other web pages out there that you're potentially competing against in a topic area, okay? I mean, if you were trying to rank for the word lawyer, right, there are probably 500 million pages in existence, maybe more, that use the term lawyer in some way, shape, or form. How are you going to differentiate yourself? Think of it in that sense, and that's where content comes in. All right, so your general content is going to describe what problems you solve and services, products, things like that. But it also gives you the opportunity to communicate with the audience, communicate with your prospects, with your users. Anybody heard of Hummingbird? Hummingbird is a Google algorithmic update that happened about a year ago. Hummingbird basically refers to a conversational, or what we call semantic search, or contextual search. All of those types of terms are referred to when people use the Hummingbird algorithmic update. Okay, and content is what it's about. You don't want to be so structured with your content that you don't sound like you're actually communicating with the people that are trying to get to your website and read it and everything like that. And make sure that you have certain basic pages. Obviously, your About Us, your products and services, contact material, privacy, terms of use, service area, all those things. You can. Everybody here is a super user of websites. You've seen all those pages. You just want to emulate the best practices that you see as well in terms of the page creation. But once you're inside that page, make sure that you're adhering to this idea of communication and contextual and conversational content. Frankly, I hate the title of this slide. I hate referring to keywords in the sense of the actual word keywords. Again, I've been doing this for a long time, and keywords used to be what was the be-all, end-all, and it was abused beyond belief. Okay, you see a panda there. There was also an update, an algorithmic update called Panda a couple of years ago. Actually, it started in 2012, I believe, the first one, and it's now in kind of a continuous slow evolution. It keeps rolling out new updates all the time, but Panda is Google's attempt to whittle down this excessive keyword stuffing, keyword abuse idea, and what they call thin content. So you want to, again, if you're using conversational ideas to build content that communicates with your audience, you will never be penalized by Panda. All right, that's the simplest way I can put it. So you want to describe things fully. You want to use different synonyms and things like that to describe variations on phrases. You don't want to use the same word 50 times on a page. That is not the right approach to generating keyword relevance for a topic. No stuffing, no stuffing. And you're going to become more and more scrutinized in the form of anchor text. This is the content, this is the words that you use to refer to yourself on pages and things like that. This is already heavily scrutinized in terms of links, and we'll get into that in a second. But inbound links to your website are already very heavily scrutinized in terms of anchor text. So you don't want to abuse it in the form on your own website referring to your own pages. Okay? All right. Optimize images. Now, images are an opportunity that most people really don't think about when they're building a website too much, and other types of media as well. Video and audio and things like that. Those are all additional opportunities to communicate and hold a conversation with your audience, and potentially other indexes to rank in. I mean, people do lookups for images pretty readily now, especially on mobile devices as that proliferates. So you want to make sure you're aware of this, and you're taking it into account when you're building out those page names, when you're building out the content within those pages. Make sure that your images hold true to certain things, which you want to make sure that the file name of the image has some relevance to that image. Don't just take the Shutterstock number that you purchased, right, and it's 30 characters long, and use that. That's not the right naming convention for that. Rename it to something that's relevant to the topic. Make sure you're taking advantage of the alt and title attributes that go along with images. Very easy. You can, almost any web program that's going to help you with development is going to have areas to fill in for that. So You don't have to think about coding in direct HTML at this point. You can use those tools to fill this stuff in for you. I would highly recommend using tools like, if you're using WordPress, make sure you're using a highly rated SEO plugin to help you with some of this maintenance issues, to make sure you're using the right phrasing here. All right. What's most important on your page? And how do you demonstrate that to the search engines and to your users? Well, fortunately, web pages come with pre-built heading tags, okay? This is a couple of them, H1, H2, they go down to, I don't know, H8 or something like that. You really don't need anything beyond H2 or H3 unless you've got a really long page. And at that point, you probably want to cut that down anyway and separate that into multiple pages. There are other things like emphasis and strong and bolding of content. Those all give visual cues as well to what's important on a page. So make use of those tools, but don't abuse them, because anything that you abuse can come back and get you into a little bit of a sense of trouble, right? So you want to use it sparingly. Just be, think about it from the sense of your own usage of a website. Are you going to read something that's all bolded or all capitalized? No, right? You want it to be representative of what the material is and what should be naturally important. All right, so that's the framework for the website. Okay, now we go on to step 2. This is the offsite. And this stuff is this is actually going to go a lot faster. Because a lot of this stuff is already, this is stuff that this is going to take a couple of extra sessions, and we'll probably do more of these type of things for some of this material. But offsite material, this is what used to be referred to as linking. Now most people don't refer to it strictly as linking anymore, because that can kind of get you into trouble. But instead of link building, it's link earning, right? And really, that's the way you have to think about it. It's again, if you're communicating conversationally with your audience, what community can you be communicating with to develop this linking? What other websites should you naturally be part of as a community? That's the best way to think of linking, okay? This authority. And to be honest with you, authority is a tremendous differentiator between websites. So as you start a website, you're going to have minimal authority, right? Nobody in the website world knows your website has any tremendous relevance. But as you start to mix your website in with other websites that are related to yours, correctly related, then your website naturally takes on some additional authority, okay? Some people call it parasitic and all this kind of stuff, but it's a natural outgrowth of what community you should be part of. All right, so this concludes 2 different pieces. The simplest thing that you can do is to make sure that you claim the major profiles that exist on your behalf, right? So you should absolutely 100% claim your Google My Business profile, right? Used to be Google Plus. Previous to that, it was Google Places. Again, next year, who knows what it's going to be, but right now it's Google My Business. And there are various schools of thought recently about how important that is and what it's heading into and so forth. Suffice it to say that if it's a Google product, it's probably not going away completely. So it's definitely worth claiming and creating correctly. You also want to claim, obviously you want to have a Facebook page, right? You want to have a Twitter page. And you get the idea. Depending on what industry you're in, there could be dozens to hundreds of sites that are relevant to your industry. We focus primarily on local SEO for home services type businesses, and we have a standard group of give or take about 100 websites that are important enough and meet the threshold of correctness and all this kind of thing to be included in a list that we would create for people. All right, so here is something, I want to introduce a topic name here for you. It's called NAP, or NAPW. This is a standard industry term now to refer to name, address, and phone number. And all across your profiles and what we call the citation process, the citation development process, one of the biggest and most important thing is that you have name, address, phone number consistency. There isn't really anything more important in the citation world than consistency of that name, your business name, your address, your physical address, and your phone number, and your website information. Now, what happens if you're using dynamic call tracking? Again, that may be above some of the things you're worried about right now, but if you're using something like that, you can still do this correctly. You just have to follow another set of guidelines, which is well documented, and you can find that out online as well. All right, so you got the basic citations covered. You got your basic profiles. You believe everything is hunky-dory in the name, address, phone number, consistency area. What else should you be going after? Again, I'm pretty consistent with this idea of community. You want to earn links by contributing to a community, right? You want to belong to a community that has to do with whatever it is that you're selling or the material products on the site and so forth, okay? That could be industry, it could be based on geography, it can be based on, again, local, even further, local community. You could be a sponsor of something, and so forth. And that's the way that you can get that stuff. Okay? Again, I want to be clear. In the past, quantity ruled in the form of linking. You wanted to get as many links as you could, as fast as you could, and it didn't really matter where they were. That is not the case today. You see the penguin up there. That's the third of the 3 major algorithmic updates that Google's come out with in the last couple of years. And the penguin will be terrible for you if you are oversaturating or getting links where they shouldn't be, okay? We run across this on a fairly regular basis, and it's one of the worst things that we can tell a company, some poor client who didn't think they were doing anything wrong, but somebody has gotten them thousands of links from all kinds of crazy websites in Indonesia and everywhere else, and they wonder why they've disappeared off the search engines. The panda, not the panda, the penguin. The penguin has reared its ugly head. So just take care to do this organically. There are no shortcuts to this stuff. The foundation is relatively straightforward, but it takes work. Don't shortcut and don't try and beat the system, because the system is pretty good now. Google's not too bad at this stuff. They've gotten much, much better in the last 10 years. And they're you're not gonna pass them very easily. All right, and the final piece of this puzzle is the extra stuff. What else? What gives you that extra edge? Let's say you got your website pieces done. You got the basics of your profiles. All the name, address, phone number stuff is good. What else are you doing? Well, there's something called schema, and it goes by a lot of different names. You could think of it as structured data. It comes in all kinds of different forms. There's a whole slew of different industry names for it. But one of the basic ideas is that it is formatting that is embedded in the code of your website that gives the search engines additional information about what that material is related about. There is phone number schema. There is local business schema. There is address schema. There is industry schema. So depending on the type of business that you have, you can actually tell Google a lot of information about your business in the background correctly. They want it. They don't want you to stuff keywords. They want you to use schema, okay? I recommend highly that if you have a physical location, even if you sell online, if you have a physical location, I recommend that you have a Google My Business page and you have the name, address, and phone number correctly schemed on your home page of your website. Those two elements are very heavily interlinked in terms of solidifying the relevancy of your business to the legitimacy and relevance of your business to a search engine. And again, that link down there is a testing tool to see whether or not you've schemed correctly, you've got the right formatting in place, because a lot of times you miss some kind of character and it doesn't render correctly. But you can test that relatively easily now. So again, you should have it. This is all very well documented. You can find this, and that is a big differentiator for most local businesses. Another area that you can really, really benefit from is what we refer to as dynamic content. Okay, and dynamic content is really, the field is completely wide open. We have very specific ways that we use it, but you can think of it as simply as updating a blog post on a regular basis, right? That makes your content dynamic, right? Or you can do articles, or you can do all kinds of different things. You can create a revolving product gallery on a weekly basis, some kind of special coupons or what have you. All of that represents dynamic content, and all of it makes your site fresh and new and increased in relevance to search engines. The reason I mentioned earlier that you might want to consider a content management system like a WordPress, or the other two biggest ones are Joomla and Drupal. Those would be the top three, but there's dozens of other CMSs out there. They each have their own benefits and drawbacks, but any of those content management systems are going to allow you very easily to insert dynamic content. And anything that allows you to keep your website fresh and relevant is going to long-term be a big help. So dynamic content is probably, I would say this is probably the number one thing that we focus on after all of the basics have been covered. Well, maybe aside from reviews. Sorry. Should have known my slide order. Okay, so reviews, in Google's trifecta there, you had expertise, authority, and trust, right? Trust comes from reviews, and it's as simple as that. I think the latest survey that I just read, if you guys follow some of the surveys and if you're reading up on stuff, Bright Local, which is a company out in the UK, does fairly consistent customer surveys. They literally just released one this week. And they found that, again, based on age bracket, but up to 97% of the users that they surveyed regard online reviews as strong a recommendation as if a personal friend had referred them to a business. That is an enormous benefit if you can leverage it, right? So make sure that regardless of what business you're in, regardless of what your website is related to, you proactively request reviews. This is not just leaving it to people in their good graces to maybe leave you a review. Find a tool, and if you have questions on that, I can certainly recommend some. Find a tool that is going to give you the benefit of requesting reviews in either a semi-automated or mostly automated kind of way, but you also want to maintain some control over who you're asking to. So there is a balance to that, but generating reviews is probably the single biggest thing that's going to transform prospects into customers. And ultimately, that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants those prospects. It's wonderful to rank, but when that prospect calls or logs into the site, you want them to do something like become a user, engage with your content, or they want them to purchase something, or if you're a local business like the ones we work with, you want them to call and you want them to schedule an appointment, or you want them to schedule service. So reviews are where it's at in terms of transferring that legitimacy to your business from other people. So that's it. as an overview, again, what we've covered here are the on-site foundation for building a website that represents your brand to everyone out there, the off-site foundation, which is citations and external community earning links, and then beyond the essentials are schema and reviews and dynamic content. All right? And with that, I will say thank you. I appreciate your attention, and I've enjoyed this, and hopefully you got some good information out of it. And if there are any questions, I'd love to take some.
Yeah, I wonder what your opinion is on multiple H1 tags on a single page.
Okay, so for I don't know if everybody could hear it. The question was, what's our opinion, or what's my opinion on multiple H1 tags on a page? Simply put, I would say that I haven't found a circumstance in which I've needed or we've needed to have multiple H1s. I would recommend using other tagging or other micro formatting to demonstrate that relevance. Because nothing is equally, you don't have a lot of phrases that are equally relevant. You might have one that's most relevant, and then beyond the page title, of course. So page title, and then H1, and then some other things. So.
What I've been finding is that some of the templates make the heading an H1, but then when you go into building the content, you want to put another
Sure.
H1.
Yeah, that's a fairly, yeah, and a lot of the H1s are inherited from page names to begin with. You're right, and that's unfortunately the beauty of using tools that allow you to template and so forth is that you can turn out a lot of information relatively easily and quickly and fast. The problem with that, of course, is that it's very structured, and it may not be ideally structured to what you end up wanting. You may have to go back and edit. What we do is when we incorporate a theme, so we're using WordPress exclusively, we take a theme in and we will modify the theme using the cascading style sheets. So we'll use the cascading style sheets to change some of the embedded formatting so we don't end up with that type of problem. But yeah, I can understand where you're coming from.
What I hear you saying is it is a problem you don't want double H1.
I wouldn't classify it as a problem as much as it's an opportunity to differentiate the content rather than having it all look the same. So if you use 5 H1s on a page, there's nothing to say that any one of those is more important than anything else. And I think if you really think about it, every single page should be, there should be a central topic that's more important than everything else. If it's done right, that's what I would hope for. So, yeah.
What's your thoughts on plugins for WordPress, for example, like Yoast?
Okay. So, question is, what's my opinion on plugins for WordPress, specifically Yoast, and when I was actually saying a reputable SEO plugin, that's probably the most reputable. I believe the latest count is, I don't know, well over 1 million downloads. So yeah, that's certainly one of the better ones. There are others that do certain things differently, and depending on what your preference is, they may do it better or whatever. But there are every single website we do has a set of plugins that we use for security and form capture and email and all of the main feature sets. We actually don't build. Now we buy them; they're all premium, but we customize them to a large degree. But we start off with some of the basic fundamentals, because the power of WordPress specifically as a platform is that you get the benefit of leveraging, I don't know, a couple of 100,000 developers who are building most of these things either for free or for a small fee, and it gives you a tremendous amount of benefit that you couldn't. I mean, we couldn't develop all the themes and all the plugins that we use without a tremendous amount of development costs, and so I'm very grateful to WordPress. But we've had our share of troubles with WordPress from a security perspective. I mean, you start putting up multiple servers with a whole bunch of websites, and believe me when I tell you, you become a target. If I showed you the brute force logs against our servers, you wouldn't believe what happens out there. So you want to definitely be careful on some of that stuff, and Yoast is probably a very good plugin for that purpose. So, yes.
For security, I had the same problems, and I ended up using SiteLock, which seems to be working pretty well, but tried security, and that didn't work at all.
Okay, so the question is, what do we use for security? And I can tell you, we use WordFence for security, in addition to a number of other things. But WordFence is a simple plugin that you can use. It's also a premium plugin that you can upgrade to. But that alone doesn't do it. There are still some extra things that I would recommend. Again, they're well beyond the scope of this, but you can ask. I mean, if you send me an email or give me a call or something like that, I'd be happy to walk you through. Security is one. It's an advanced paid subscription. It's a little pricey to my liking, frankly, and I didn't see that it did the real-time job that it was supposed to. Security is a WordPress security platform that the claim to fame for them is that they will actually be able to go in directly and pull the malware and so forth that occurs when your site gets hacked. It could happen, it could work. The testing that we did with it a couple of years ago, it wasn't quite as effective as some of the other stuff that we looked at. SiteLock is another one that's got a well-known reputation. It actually has a hook similar to that. I don't know what it's called now, but it actually you can connect your server login to it, and they can go in and pull material out. They have various levels of subscription as well, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But in a basic sense, SiteLock is not bad because it'll give you you'll at least know. If you don't have anything else in the background, at least you'll know that you've been hacked. So at least then you can go in and try and fix it. Yes?
Limit login attempts is a plugin that's like 4 years old. It's amazing for brute force hacks because if somebody tries to log in 3 or 4 times, it'll ban their IP. And going with a service like Pagely or
Yep.
Engine, like those guys are amazing when it comes to security.
Can you repeat what was the name?
WP Engine or Pagely.
What was the other one? The first one you said?
WP Engine.
Okay, I thought you said lock me out or something.
There's a plugin called Limit Login Attempts.
Okay.
That's amazing for brute force hack attempts because you can set like a 30-day interval for somebody that tries to hit your site more than like 5 times.
Right.
That cancels, but since we've moved like 500 sites to Pagely and have not had one brute force hack attempt.
So for everybody who didn't hear what this gentleman said, limit logins and WP Engine. WP Engine is not a bad solution, but it is also it's a dedicated hosting environment in addition to. So if you don't want to host with them, you can't really use them. And there are no shortage of other places. I mean, WordFence will do the same thing with brute force. Frankly, you can configure virtually any server to do the same thing too. So again, this is what I'm talking about when I say that there's multiple things going on. You want to make sure that there's if you're using an external hosting environment, make sure that you have a conversation with who that is about what's going on security-wise, because it's just getting more and more. It's getting more and more brutal out there. You got to be more. We got to stay diligent with this stuff on virtually a monthly basis. We're making subtle changes to our security protocols to keep everybody safe. So, yeah.
So I was curious if you have a process and have seen success, because I feel like everybody's kind of just testing the waters and trying new things.
Sure. Okay. Sure. Come on over. Yeah. I mean, I can keep talking. I think you can probably hear me better on the microphone anyway. But so the question was, is there a process for the link earning part of things? And I can't share all the secret sauce, but let's suffice it to say that there are some advanced tools that we pay fairly substantially for that give us insights into some of the things called domain authority and page authority and other things like that. And we can reverse engineer from that material what websites are relevant and important and things like that for the prospecting for link earning. That doesn't mean that's who we go after. It just means, you know, we can create a list of who we should be targeting and then try it. And again, like I said, the easiest way to do link earning in real good organic fashion is to look right in your own backyard, right? What are you already part of? Groups like this. What other things do you belong to? What other businesses do you work with? Those are all link opportunities, right? A lot of people used to call them link sharing or reciprocal linking, whatever, but that actually helps because it shows that you're part of a community that's related. So, yes?
Bob, one last thing. You said about your slides are going to be available. Are you going to put them later on?
Yeah, yes, they will be.
Okay, so on the Twitter feed or where? SEO on the meetup page?
I believe there's probably going to be multiple places for it. Yeah, just take the email address and stuff like that. We'll be happy to get it to you. No problem at all. All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you again.